The second half of the 2010s was such a bad time for WWE in terms of creative. The shows were awful, the pay-per-views weren't living up to the hype, and WWE rarely built up any new stars. Relying on legends and part-timers did more harm than good, as there was no focus on great storytelling. If it wasn't for one specific brand, WWE could have lost a lot more of its fan base. Yes, I'm talking about NXT, more specifically the good old Black and Gold NXT. The show had everything from phenomenal wrestlers, long-term storylines, and more importantly, better matches. The show was so good that it genuinely felt like a dream, but it wasn't always sunshines and rainbows, as there were things that our beloved Black and Gold just didn't do the way it should have. So today, let's see all of the good and bad of the Black and Gold NXT. If you're new here, my name is Mex, hit the subscribe button and notification bell, and let's get right into it. Now firstly, the Black and Gold NXT wouldn't have come to life if it wasn't for the hideous original concept that we got back in 2010. For those who don't know, NXT used to be this reality show that featured superstars from the Indies and Florida Championship Wrestling, FCW, which was the WWE's developmental territory. The first season is widely remembered as the stars involved in the season formed the Nexus. The stable immediately became one of the most talked about in the entire pro wrestling industry. Then they met John Cena, and I'm sure you know what happened from there. After a few more boring seasons, NXT was rebranded in 2012 as the company's developmental wrestling show. Many didn't have any hopes for it, and why should they? Vince didn't care about young talent on the main roster, let alone the talent on the developmental show. However, there was a beacon of hope for NXT. That beacon was none other than Triple H. Armed with a team including Matt Bloom, Dusty Rhodes, William Regal and others, they had a vision for the brand and the next generation. Triple H wanted to bring back wrestling to the company, and he wanted to make things feel right again. Looking back now, you can clearly tell that he wanted to revolutionize pro wrestling for good in North America, and Black and Gold achieved just that. There are a lot of things that Black and Gold just did better. Let's begin with the talent that Triple H brought in. Starting in 2013, Triple H had stars like Sami Zayn in NXT. Sami was known as El Generico in the Indies, and he had a decent fan following before stepping foot in the company. Triple H brought over Finn Balor and Kevin Owens in 2014, and this is when people began to take NXT a lot more seriously. Both Balor and Owens were major names in the industry. Balor is known for being one of the founding fathers of the Bullet Club stable in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Kevin Owens, well, he was just considered an absolute beast on the independent circuit. The brand became even more star-studded when performers like Samoa Joe, Adam Cole, Asuka, Shinsuke Nakamura and Ricochet joined the promotion. There were reports that Triple H even wanted to sign the Elite. Imagine what the landscape of pro wrestling would have been like today if that had actually happened. Anyway, Triple H saw the mess Vince was making on the main roster, and he knew that he had to do the stuff Vince should have done years ago. Putting emphasis on women's wrestling was one of Triple H's major objectives. Whenever you think about NXT, you immediately think about the four horsewomen: Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Bayley, Sasha Banks. They were at the forefront of the women's division in NXT. If it wasn't for the amazing rivalries that the talented females of the Black and Gold era put on, the female division on the main roster would have never reached the heights it is at today. Moreover, I might go as far as saying as that without Black and Gold, women's wrestling would have not been revolutionized altogether. Let me know your thoughts on that one in the comment. When Vince was relying on part-timers, Triple H showed that new talents could put on great storylines as well. Black and Gold NXT was full of riveting television. Sami Zayn's quest to become NXT champion, Sasha Banks and Bayley battling for the NXT women's title, Velveteen Dream forcing Aleister Black to acknowledge him and say his name, the rise and fall of the Undisputed Era. Black and Gold had it all. I can go on for days. However, nothing came close to the rivalry between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. Their run as DIY produced some of the best tag team matches of the past decade, and when Tommaso turned heel, it led to an all-time great feud between the two. The feud felt personal, and every match between them was fantastic from start to finish. Speaking of matches, Triple H didn't hold his talent back from putting on some of the best matches in pro wrestling. From 2016 to 2021, Black and and Gold NXT was firing on all cylinders and the quality of the matches was vastly better than the ones on the main roster. If you ever wonder why today's PLEs don't have more than 6 matches, go back and revisit some takeover events. Those shows didn't need to have 10 matches, as 5 to 6 matches did the job. Quality over quantity is what Triple H has always been about. This format works for Black and Gold NXT and we got all-time great matches. With these matches, feuds and takeover events, Black and Gold NXT had something for everyone, but like I said earlier, it was far from perfect as well. No matter how much I love Black and Gold, I simply cannot deny that Triple H didn't always prepare talent well for the main roster. Many of the Black and Gold NXT talents were fired by Vince, as he never understood the appeal of these performers. Stars like Karrion Kross, Swerve Strickland, Keith Lee and Bronson Reed were released from the company before they had even got a chance to show what they were really capable of. Yes, you could say that Triple H was bringing in indie stars, but those stars could have been great on the main roster. Had Adam Cole stayed, I believe he probably would have been released too, either that or just not used and then leave at the end of his contract. Triple H's NXT hardly felt like a developmental show. The talented indie stars made it feel like the third brand of the company, NXT PWG or NXT Ring of Honor as the streets used to call it. And while it wasn't completely a bad thing for the viewer, it was a failing production line for the main roster, which was always the end goal. The concept of a developmental show kind of got lost in the process, and as talented as these men and women were, they were not being prepared for the main roster. Scratch that, they weren't being prepared for Vince McMahon. NXT champions would go to the main roster and have their entire character and packaging changed from what worked for them that made them champions in the first place. The lack of continuity onto the main roster was alarming. Don't get me wrong, this is mainly Vince McMahon's fault, but Triple H must take blame also, as it is almost like leading the lambs to the slaughter. We also got to the point where there was a lack of actual developmental, particularly for the incoming indie talents. Yes, we can't answer all problems. We can't make Adam Cole taller or remove the eloquence from Keith Lee, but we can definitely drill into Ricochet the ability to cut a better promo. Furthermore, with the emergence of 10 to 15 year veterans on Black and Gold NXT, it reduced the amount of younger stars that can be molded into WWE superstars in a more McMahon-like vision. The current version of NXT have nailed exactly this, with young stars like Bron Breakker, Obafemi and Roxanne Perez all ranging between about 21 and 27 years old at the time of recording. Today's NXT has several younger names, and had Triple H focused on that a little more during his time in NXT, maybe Black and Gold would have never ended. Now, of course, AEW played a massive factor in the demise of the Black and Gold era, but it brought about necessary re-evaluation of the product, and although we had to endure NXT 2.0 as the first iteration of that evaluation, the balance has definitely been found with today's product. Regardless of everything, Black and Gold holds a special place in the hearts of millions out there, and it will be looked back at for years to come. So what do you guys think? Was it right to kill Black and Gold NXT? Did NXT back then fulfill its role as a developmental brand? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, make sure you subscribe for more, and check out the videos on screen where I discuss 2 products of the NXT developmental system, Ricochet and Sasha Banks, and the different directions their careers have taken so far.